You're listening to the Better People podcast. I'm your host, Tom Warner. Today's topic is going to be about living in the moment, and with me is our guest. And I guess she's really not a guest anymore. She's been on every episode the last few weeks. Just our co-host. How about that? We'll start calling you our co-host.
Sure.
Rhonda Ramirez from Central Texas. You're a licensed professional counselor from the Central Texas area. And so rather than hearing me talk about things that I think sound good and sound good to me, I can back it up and say, no, there's a counselor who's qualified to talk about the things that we're going to talk about. And that way I'm not just giving horribly bad advice. And so, today, though, we're talking about living in the moment. And before the show, we were kind of just briefly talking about examples. I was saying that I also need guidance on how to live in the moment. But for me, it's just trying to shut their mind off from everything and just listening and observing what you're doing at that moment. But you can probably expand on that and give better examples and how to do that.
Yeah. So living in the moment or being present in the moment, those are kind of the two ways that I usually use being present in the moment more often. But I think that should be like a life goal for all of us. Because when we are present, we can notice those little things that are actually happening and be really appreciative of those things. So I always describe being present in the moment something similar to this. So you are using your senses to see what is going on around you. And then you're also looking for relational connection that might be going on around you. So when we are living in the moment, we can notice, we can actually stop for a moment and say, you can go through your five senses. Hey, right now, in my own house, living in this moment right now, I smell, there's this great cinnamon roll candle from H-E-B, and it makes my house smell like cinnamon rolls. Right now, I can see my pets who I love, and I can see that they're, that I have a home to go to that keeps me safe. I don't have anything to taste right now, so I don't have anything specific to taste. But I do have some lemon water over here, so I could take that moment to taste some lemon water, right? Right now, I hear the wind outside the window. And again, I would like to go back to I'm thankful for this structure and this home that keeps me safe and warm right now. Let's see. So that's seeing, touching. Oh, I didn't say touch. So touching is the last one, right? So, and also right now, I happen to be sitting under this really soft, cuddly blanket. And I can touch the blanket and feel the softness. So when we go through our senses, it really brings us immediately to what is immediately around us. That's a real easy way to kind of touch it or check in with what's going on in the moment. Then when we're like also around other people or, with our families, you can also take that moment to kind of check in and see, okay, well, what do I see going on here? Maybe I see that there, some of my favorite things to kind of notice when my family is together is like to see the relationship between grandparents and grandchild. That's super cool, and I love to kind of just pay attention to how that unfolds. Or to see that, the way that people interact and show love to each other, whether it's bringing them, my mom always brings my dad tea to drink. Doesn't she? Every time she gets up, she asks him if he wants some more tea to drink. that's a way that they show love. And I always notice that and like, oh, that's kind of, that's super cute. But I also appreciate being able to see that they have that relationship. So I think being in the moment is really focusing on what is actually happening around you, and like I said, the easiest kind of thing to start with is just start with your five senses. What do you sense around here? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you see? What do you touch? And just start there, because when you do that, that kind of brings your mind out of all of that craziness, right? That our minds are really good at kind of going and going and going. And the other reason that I think it's really important to kind of practice living in the moment, being present in the moment, is because if we tend to live in the past and we tend to kind of live on what we did yesterday or what happened 2 years ago, often that's kind of where depression lies, because we generally are focusing on mistakes or things we could have done better, or maybe even, wow, it was really great 2 years ago. Why is it not great now? So we can get kind of sad in that moment of looking back. And then often if our brains are in the future, we're often worried or anxious about things that will happen, things that could happen. These are the issues that might happen. And then our brains don't stop. Once we start down that road, we don't stop, and we can make up 10 million scenarios. And when we're doing that, when our brains are focused are either on the past or the future, we don't actually see what is happening around us on a daily basis. And so the practice of being in the moment, of being present, is really something we have to practice. And like you said, it's something you want to work on getting better at, because it's something that we have to practice.
Right. Well, an example, and this is a visual example. So for this audio podcast, use your imagination, live in the moment and think about this. There's an image of, and I don't remember what the attention was, but it's a crowd. They're at a parade, and it shows this older woman, probably over 70, smiling and looking at whatever was the attention. And actually, I don't think they showed you what the attention was, but everyone around her, they were smiling too, but they all had their phones out, and they were all recording, and they were all trying to get selfies with whoever or whatever was behind them to show, hey, I was here. This woman, it shows her though, just has nothing in her hands. She's just looking at it and smiling, and you can tell she's enjoying that very moment. Her camera is going to be her mind. She's going to think back to that.
Right.
And not saying it can't be meaningful if you take a picture either. I mean, I may be one of the guys who would be taking a picture, but
I totally would too.
Yeah, but it's just to show that, hey, there's no distraction. She's just enjoying it for the sake of being there.
Yeah, and taking the moment in, for sure. And yes, I think, you hit on a big one, is that, oftentimes I think this may happen to maybe moms more than dads, but you can speak for that as well. I think, that Pinterest idea of we have to make our lives and our family look like this. Sometimes that idea of, like we have to take pictures like this, or we have to do this, we have to make it picture perfect, or, whatever that is. That distracts from what is actually happening in your home or in your life.
Right.
We're so focused on, well, we need to make it look like this, that we don't notice that there is, oh, look, there's a blue jay out in my front yard, but I am not paying attention because I'm trying to make it look so cool when I take my Instagram picture, those kinds of things.
Well,
so
it's kind of like, my wife's a photographer and I take photos as well. And and I think she's better than me at that. But the way I do my photos is I'm a very spontaneous kind of guy. I don't like to frame it. I mean, I don't like to set it up and say, okay, you look endearingly into their eyes and put the,
right.
I just want to take the pictures of you being you, and so I don't necessarily, so that's why I like nature photos, because most nature photos don't move and you can just, but that is a big difference. And whereas you have a studio photographer, or non-studio who's like, okay, you need to bend down more. Okay. You need to bring your knee up. Okay. You need to do this. And it just looks, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with those photos at all. But, in my mind, it's like, but that's not natural. It's like I take a picture every morning. I've started the school year of the kids, and I drop them off.
Yeah.
And I take, it's a daily drop off photo of them before they go to school in the car as we're in the line. And I don't know, I just started doing it. Someone else was doing it. I liked it, so I started doing it. And people are like, "Oh, they're so well behaved and everything." Is like, let me explain to you what was happening about a third of a second before I hit snap. This other one licked his brother, and they were fighting and pushing each other out of the way. And then I happened to catch them in about a 2-second lull of, okay, got the picture, And I'm like, that is totally staged. I say staged. That is not what was happening.
Not what was happening.
Nor is that what was happening after the photo,
Right.
And so it's and then that reminds me as well of pardon me. I was reading an article or watching a video about somebody asked the question, "Hey, how did the kids of the influencer, I can't say the word, social media,
yes,
famous people." My mind is not completely blank. People who are famous on social media, influencers. That's the word.
Influencers.
How did their kids turn out? And they're referring to the parents and families that have, the YouTube video, the YouTube channel of, here's our daily family life, and it's, everything is caught on camera. Everything's on camera. And I'm not going to say this is true for every situation, but one of the kids, like, let me tell you what it was like growing up. He says, my mom wasn't necessarily the most famous of YouTubers, but she had a channel about parenting, a following. And she said, I remember being locked out of the house until I would behave enough to take a picture that was perfectly crafted, that I remember, being yelled at if I didn't say the right phrase when she would ask me a question for the video. I remember being, she said, so for me, it was a horrible experience having a parent who was trying to gain a social following, because I said, it's all prepackaged. It's all staged to a degree. There's no privacy. She said I had no privacy. And so I know that's probably a distraction from what we were talking about on living in the moment, but that was not living in the moment. That was
that's creating something that is untrue.
Right.
But kind of circling back to that kind of being present and living in the moment, even the fact, even you said, your kids are one is licking the other one and they're, whatever, right before that picture. But, if we're practicing living in the moment, you may be able to say, yes, that is ridiculous and disgusting, and they're just, trying to annoy each other. But also maybe in that moment you can say, wow, they actually kind of like each other, even though they're trying to ignore each other,
Right.
They're being able to kind of recognize, wow, we're kind of building this close relationship between them, even though it seems a little chaotic.
Well, and
that's more.
For me, the drop-off line, and talking about living in the moment, I really like it. They fight and they argue, but it's fun because there's about 10 or 15 minutes of just sitting there. I like to get there. I like to get there early. So I'll sit there for 15 minutes so I can be first to the line or close. And it's just to hear them talk up to each other about things, just things, nothing specific, just they're having conversation. And then when they go to bed at night, if they go to bed at the same time, to hear them talk and jabber for 15, 20 minutes about nothing.
About nothing.
Well, something to them, but it may be
Right.
Minecraft, or it may be something about a video they saw, and he'll say,
Right.
John, did you know about this? And like, no. And then they'll talk about it. And it's just listening to that and not looking at the phone, not watching TV, just listening to them. Just be kids. I was telling you before the recording that one of the moments when I had that feeling was, besides, with my kids at night, was with our group that we have at our church called Wayfinders, and it's to bring dads and sons together. And kind of an endearing moment was we were done, and the kids were all playing foosball, and just listening to them interact and talk and just have no, not trying to stage anything, just them being kids.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so that is an interesting, way of looking at it.
I also think I just was thinking about this while you were talking, is because I try really hard to. I'm a teacher during the day, so I try really hard to connect with each student at least for a moment every day. And for me, that means that I look them in the eye when I say something to them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take the moment to stop and look people in the eye when we're talking to them, that is also kind of a marker for being present, because even if it's your spouse, if you take the moment to say, hey, can you look at me for a minute? I just want to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
First, it's kind of an indicator that's probably important, or it's something you want them to hear. But also, it's like, hey, can we be in this moment together?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I really try hard to at least. Sometimes with the teenagers, it's hard to get them to look me in the eye or to look up from whatever they're, whatever screen they're looking at or whatever they're listening to. But if I can at least say, good morning with a direct eye contact, or how are you, like genuinely, how are you today? Like, are you okay? What's going on? Any of those things, I try really hard to make that eye contact. And I don't do it as well as I should, maybe in general, like passing interactions, like at the grocery store. I probably should do a little bit better, maybe with the cashiers or something,
Right.
to really, try to see people. But for sure, that's one thing that forces me to become present in my job, is to look people in the eye when I say something to them.
Well, with me being in an office environment, and it's you're saying things to me that I'm like, I need to start getting better at that. But one thing I have not been great at, but I've wanted to be more able to do, and I've done this in past lives, is when people walk in, rather than just, I don't like just walking into someone's office. So
Right.
not endorsing it, but I know sometimes you have to. Is if I'm
Mm-hmm.
if I'm at my desk, instead of just continuing to work and say, yeah, how can I help you? Stop what I'm doing, put my phone down, put the mouse down,
Right.
or move the mouse out of the way, turn to them and say, hey, how can I help you? And be more present and mindful that they're there, instead of making it look like I'm just so swamped and can't talk. I may feel that way, but I think that it's a human thing to do versus just, this podcast is about making our communication better, and then I'm guilty of sometimes just not looking up. It's like, yeah, what do you want?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, listen, I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes the kids will be like, hey, can I go to the restroom? And I never look away from my screen. I'm like, sure, yes.
Right.
But I also, there are times where the kids will come up and be like, Mr. Ramirez, and I'm like, you know what? If you'll give me 1 minute, let me finish what I'm doing on the screen, and then I will turn to them and be like, okay, I'm ready to hear what you have to say.
Now, you say that, actually, that is more of what I do now.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if you can give me about 30 seconds, I'm finishing out this email, and I've got a train of thought that I need to continue.
Finish. Yeah.
And then, finish out. And then then I'll send it and say, okay, how can I help you?
Right.
I'll try to be more like that. There's a book that I've started reading, and so I can't give into the full details other than what the synopsis is and what people have told me who've read it. It's called At Your Best by Carrie Nieuwhof. And just Google At Your Best, and Carrie Nieuwhof is spelled in an odd way. So I can't. But it talks about, those tactics. It talks about, hey, I know this is, I want to give you my full attention. At this moment, I can't do that. So if you can give me about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I'll come to you.
Right.
And you'll have my full attention. And I think it's okay to have those conversations with people sometimes.
It's absolutely okay, even within your family or with your spouse. It's absolutely okay. The kicker is that you can't forget to go back.
Yes, and that's my problem sometimes. Now, and I actually had somebody use that on me because they had read the book and they were like, "Hey, this is important. I know what you want to talk to me about important, but I need to wrap up this project real fast. I'll come to you." In my mind, I'm thinking, you're going to forget, and I'm going to have to come back. Sure enough, they said, I'll be back there at 10 o'clock. Guess what? They were there at 10 o'clock like they promised. And I made sure to mention that to him. I said, hey, I completely thought you were going to forget about me. And, you know, we laughed about it. And the guy stuck to his word and came back at 10, and we talked about what we needed to and got a lot accomplished.
That is the thing. You know, you can't say, give me 2 minutes and then, take 15. Yeah. You have to be true to your word. Because then people begin to trust you. Yeah. But also that is saying, hey, I'm making this a priority to do what I said.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I, my go-to answer for when I've forgotten is, man, that was a long 2 minutes, so, and then sometimes I'm like, it's like end of day and I'm like, oh my goodness, I told them at 8:30 I'd be there. And I completely just got, what'll happen? Somebody walks in and starts talking to me, or I get a G-chat or not a G-chat, a Teams message or call come through, and it just derails my train of thought. But that's another topic about distractions. We'll talk about it later in a later topic. But no, I think our time's kind of coming to an end here. But no, I like this discussion, and I told you at the beginning, this is probably more therapeutic for me to hear this, because I have a problem of not living in the moment sometimes and just worrying about, okay, I got to get this done. Right. And you end up you get lost on Facebook or TikTok or something, and it's easy to do that, and you end up replacing what you should be doing with something it's not as healthy. And so, well, thank you for your time on that. Appreciate it. We'll come back next week and we'll have another topic for people to listen to. Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and then I'll come back to you in a minute. Good. All right. Okay. All right. You've been listening to the Better People Podcast. Today's topic was living in the moment, or being present in the moment. It's definitely something I myself need to focus on and try to get better at. But that's the point of this podcast, is we're kind of helping each other along, aren't we? Well, as always, thanks for listening. Drop us an email at hello@betterpeoplepodcast.com. Visit our website at betterpeoplepodcast.com, as well as like us on Facebook. Give us a follow on Twitter. Anyways, as always, thanks for listening.